Will be.
Oh my goodness. My knees.
I see that you're dressed like a karate teacher today.
Is that how karate teachers
Yeah, you
are?
know, like a gi, like a baggy clothes kind of thing, you know? Is that a gi?
Oh, that's like my new mom style.
No, it's
It's
good.
like
Looks very comfortable.
I know.
Are these clothes made out of bamboo?
Those are made of cotton.
Good, but there's no plastic in them.
No, it won't disrupt my endocrine.
Are we rolling?
We are rolling.
Okay.
All right, welcome to the Love and Thunder podcast. I'm Camille Leblanc-bazinet.
And I'm Dave Lipson.
And I'm going to go look to make sure our mics are working.
Are they working? Are they working? Can you hear them?
It doesn't say it like...
Check 1, 2. Levels, levels, levels. Was there there's not a problem using 2 at the same time, right?
Mm-mm. I just don't know why it says this.
It does that to me sometimes too. I think it just means that it's bumped. Like it's
Do you need to take the cover off your phone? And plug it
Oh,
in?
here we go. Okay,
Check
it's
1,
working.
2. So it was recording the whole time.
Yeah, it was recording the whole time.
Okay.
Okay, welcome to the Love and Thunder podcast. I am your host.
Camille,
Camille Leblanc-bazinet.
you look really beautiful today.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I am.
Yeah. Nice.
You look very beautiful too.
Thank you.
And you are?
Dave Lipson. And we should do this intro again.
I think it's fine.
Ready? And clip.
Oh, welcome to the Love and Thunder podcast. I'm your host, Camille Leblanc-bazinet.
And I'm Dave Lipson.
And today I am asking all the questions, and you must answer them all
I won't ask you any questions back.
truthfully.
Okay.
You can ask me some question, but I don't have to answer. Okay, so I want you to tell me
Oh boy.
about your first love
My first love?
in life, like the first thing you've ever fallen in love with.
Oh boy. Well, I think honestly the first thing I fell in love with was skateboarding.
Yep.
Yeah. And this is like, I don't know, around the age of 6, 7, 8 years old. I watched a movie with Christian Slater. I don't know if you guys know Christian Slater. He's fucking awesome. And he did this movie called Gleaming the Cube about a skateboarder who avenges his brother's death on his skateboard. It's so good. And he was awesome. It was a really cool movie. And this was right around the time that the skateboarding evolution and Powell Peralta was like really starting to have an impact on pop culture. So there was all this cool like art and clothing and the boards and just like the culture of it. I loved it so much. And really funny, my hero in skateboarding was this guy named Mike McGill, invented the McTwist. And I had his skateboard. It was this gnarly skateboard with like a skull and
And the
a
snake.
snake coming out of the mouth. I was like, oh man, this is so sick. And he was my favorite. And years later, you were with me in
San Diego.
and Encinitas.
Yep.
And I saw this sign that said McGill Skate Shop. And I was like, I wonder if that's like Mike McGill Skate Shop. Like, that's crazy. Let me go in there. So I walked in. I was like, is this by any chance like Mike McGill Skate Shop? And they were like, yeah, he's in the back. I'm like, what? Mike McGill's in the back? Oh, okay, all right, cool. So I can meet him? Like, he's like, yeah. So this guy comes out. He's like, much older, you know, like I knew him. He was like 16 years old when he was my hero, right? And he's now like in his 50s and super skinny. You can still recognize him though. And I was like, oh man, you know, Mr. McGill, I just wanted to let you know, like, you were my hero growing up and you're really what pushed me into athletics. And I went and I had a professional baseball career and now I have this whole training career. And it all started with my love of skateboarding and you are the person who inspired me to do it. And he looked at me, I don't know if he's like stoned or something. He looked at me and he was like, nice. You want a sticker? And he gave me a sticker. I still have the sticker. And Christian Slater, who, you know, he was not just like, he was a big actor. He was in like Pump Up the Volume, Bed of Roses. Like he was in a lot of awesome films back in the late 80s and early 90s. I ended up training him in New York City in part of a small group, whereas him and Howard Stern and Christian Slater and Benicio del Toro, and I was like, oh, okay. And one day I was in the gym and I was wearing the Mike McGill t-shirt because that was the skateboard that he rode in the movie.
Yeah.
And we're in the session, and I was like, hey, I got something I can show you. And he's like, okay. So I pick up I had a nice collared shirt. I pick up the shirt, and
You
I'm
had that
like,
under?
you know what this is? And he was like, no. And I'm like, so disappointed. I was like, nah.
Because it was so big for
Yeah,
you,
it
and
was
for
huge
them,
for me.
it
It
was
was
like
huge for me.
another Saturday.
It's surreal sometimes. I feel like, sports and training has taken me some really unique places, but one thing it's done is it's like allowed me to meet some of my heroes.
Yeah.
And it feels surreal sometimes.
I want to go back to, because I feel like you just glanced over it. You're like, when I was in New York, I trained X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
And I think that's something that, a lot of people don't know, but you lived in New York, and why don't you walk me through what it was like to live in New York, and what was your life like, and who did you work with?
So, coming off of pro sports and professional baseball, like that was a really hard decision for me to make, like leaving baseball, because it was my whole identity. And so, I took this job in Manhattan at an amazing gym called La Palestra, which was unlike any gym I had seen before, because it was like so private and high-end and concierge. Like you couldn't even tell it was a gym from the outside. You had to go through like 6 security checkpoints.
It was like a speak-easy gym.
Exactly, and inside it's like this ballroom with like chandeliers and classic training equipment, and a lot of people in there were celebrities and entertainers.
How did you even get to like, what's the name, like talk to someone to get the job? Like, how did you even like get in contact with that? Because I feel like it's such a dream for a trainer in some way to like coach celebrity. So like, what's that process like? I wouldn't even know where to start. Or do you need to be a David Lipson?
To be honest with you, like, I was on the fence about leaving baseball. My family, they were very enthusiastic about the idea of me leaving baseball.
Yeah, sadly.
Right? Because they were like, we want David to have a career stability, like yada yada. And I was just gone the whole year, and it's not a traditional route. And I still did it as long as I wanted to. But, when we were talking about like some things I might want to do, I had already studied for a year to get my CSCS as a strength and conditioning coach, and I was looking at jobs at maybe universities or sports. Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. So the NSCA, which is kind of the main governing body when it comes to accreditations and education for professional strength and conditioning coaches.
What is the NSCA?
The National Strength and Conditioning Association.
I'm asking for people watching.
It's kind of like the gold standard. If you want to be a strength coach at a high school, a university, or a professional team, which is, I thought that's where I was going. I thought I was going to move just to a different part of the field,
Yeah.
That's the gold standard for getting a job. And it's a really big, hard test. So I spent the whole year, the previous season, on the bus. When we'd be on these like 13-hour bus rides, everyone would be watching DVDs or playing cards or something. And I just had my nose in the book, and I'd be like highlighting it and listening to tapes on it and stuff like that, just trying to learn it because I knew it was a very hard test. And it honestly took me almost a year to study for. But when I got it, I was like, okay, I'll start applying to some universities and see if there's an assistantship job open or different sports performance places. And one of my parents' friends was a producer at ABC, and he was saying how there's this crazy gym that all these celebrities and entertainers go to, and it was right across the street from ABC. So like a lot of their, I think it was Good Morning America, staff would like go and train there and stuff. And so he's like, I know the owner, I think I can get you an interview. And I was like, well, sure. I wasn't really thinking about even that like general population clientele. I was thinking athletes, because that to me was a niche I was like very comfortable with.
It was something you knew.
Yeah, I knew it, and I was like, I think I want to be more specialized than just trainers. Even then, like trainers had kind of a knock on them where it was like a bullshit career. Like it's like, be a trainer, you just go like wait tables, like trainers don't make a living. And the God's honest truth was, I think back then it was like a lot harder for a trainer to make a living unless you owned a gym or created a product or a brand. And even now that's true to some extent, but there's a lot more opportunity to make a living as a trainer than there was then because of the internet.
Well, also, I feel like years and years ago, everything that goes into health wasn't as much of a thing as is it now. I think like people now really recognize that like mental and physical health help you be better at everything else.
People weren't as into training, they weren't as into nutrition. You didn't have the ability to create a business for yourself as easily as you can now with social media and stuff. There wasn't online training. It was hard for people to find you. It was hard for you to find an interview. You know, so your options are like New York Sports Club or Gold's Gym, or trying to maybe go to a university and be a strength coach, or open up your own studio. But
so you got that interview.
Got the interview, and the guy was, you know, the owner is a guy named Pat Menachia, and he's kind of a legend in the New York fitness industry. So he's been around for a while. Smart dude, went to Brown University, which is like a very creative Ivy League kind of school, and they're known for being very eccentric at that school. You know, you can design your own major. And he was a hockey player. His roommate was John F. Kennedy Jr., and he kind of fell into this crowd of like high-end, uber wealthy people, and he started training them. And that's kind of what gave him his start to eventually open up this exclusive gym for people of that type of clientele, right? Like people who maybe they can't train in a normal gym, or they don't want to, they just want their own high-end place where they can just kind of be anonymous or not have to deal with the regular crowds.
Okay, so how old were you then?
I was like 28 years old.
Okay, so you're 28 years old. You just moved on from being a professional baseball player, and you're now living in New York, coaching at La Palestra.
Yep.
What did your day look like?
You know, originally at this place, it was kind of a unique situation because
I just want to ask, because I feel like a lot of people sometimes think that they want certain things, but they don't understand everything that goes with.
With
it.
I think that's true for everything. But when I started, this was a unique position because it was like a salaried trainer position where most personal trainers in that gym setting were like getting paid on the hour for the training. So, you know, if let's say you train somebody for $70 an hour, maybe the trainer got 40 for the hour and the gym gets 30 or something like that. This was like a salary position where it'd be like, here's your salary. I think it was something, I don't know, in the $40,000 range, maybe less, I don't know.
A year.
Yeah, but it didn't matter. You could train as many or as little people and you'd still get paid the same amount of money. So when I started there, I didn't have any clientele. So I would just sit in the back office and read and study and try to, you know, learn some stuff. And then every once in a while someone would come in, and it was pretty interesting at this gym. Like when you come in, like you would have to train with a trainer. So like they would
that was the only way. So that was the only way you could train at that gym.
Yeah,
the clients would pay this fee to be part of the gym, just to be part of it.
Yep.
And then if they wanted to train, they had to pay a one-on-one
You had
session.
your own trainer,
Yes.
you had your own file, and there were like doctors and physical therapists
How much was
and psychologists there.
How much was just being part of the club?
Let's just call it pretty pricey. I don't remember the exact price point.
Okay,
because
it might be different now.
Yeah, I'm sure it's changed, but it's what you would expect. And so I mean, I'd be sitting there, and there might be one person that came in that day and worked 1 hour, and then just kind of hung out the rest of the day. But as I started getting to train more people, my style of training was much different than other trainers because I had come from sports and sports performance. Like I didn't know any other way to train people than to squat them and deadlift them and, you know, have them do like real strength and conditioning types of things.
More compound
Which
movement.
it's not, you know, it wasn't like kind of a lot of the hoity-toity stuff, especially around that time. There was this big functional training thing on Bosu balls and bands and all kinds of crazy stuff. Like this was legit strength training. So my clientele built up pretty fast.
Squat, deadlift, bench.
Yeah, just based on the fact that like my training was
like
different.
Sprinting.
It was maybe a little bit harder. Yeah. And so it ended up being the kind of thing where like I would work a shift maybe from like 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then I started getting calls that like, oh, well, this client's in town and they want to train at night. Can you come back? And like, okay. And then I ended up working a split shift. And it got to the point where I was training so many clients in a day that I was like, man, like I am running myself into the ground. And that's the double-edged sword of just having a set salary, is there isn't that level of reciprocity where like the better the gym does, the better you do. It's a set salary. So, I was just getting overworked, and I had a client that I still have a great relationship to this day with, named Scott, who, was at that gym, and he's kind of, I think he had kind of had enough, and he wanted to leave, and he said, hey, I'll match your salary just to be my trainer. And I'm like, yes, done. Yeah. And he had a lot of his own friends,
and we still
too.
talk to him now.
You start building a network, and that's the grind. I felt like as soon as I was on my own, the idea of like working long hours and working really hard, it didn't bother me at all because I was building my business.
Yeah.
But when you're doing that for someone else and there isn't that reward in some way, financially or otherwise, it's just hard to recreate that in anything that you don't have ownership in.
It does make sense at first, though, because at first you go into this new venture and you don't have experience, you don't have clients, and it's like as your experience grow and you get better, there's just this like kind of switch that needs to happen at a point. But if you comes from, not having your foot in and clients, that's a great opportunity. But once you're getting overused and the value doesn't match how much you're getting paid, now it's become
originally when I was in New York, I lived in Chinatown, and it was like a pretty shady neighborhood in Chinatown. I think my rent was $1,000, and it was basically like a closet in Chinatown. And I would have to take like the E train uptown to like Central Park West to get to the gym to train people.
What did your parents think when they saw
They
you?
never even went there.
Oh, they never?
It was too scary for them
I would
to
have
even see
loved,
that place.
I would have loved.
But it was really a unique experience. Like New York is amazing. And then when I left that gym and started just doing my own business, I moved to the Upper West Side to like 96. And this is kind of like where they filmed or like Seinfeld is supposed to take place. So it's a really cool area of New York with like all kinds of neat stuff around, and I had my skateboard because I always still skateboarded.
Yes.
And I would skateboard through Central Park to my clients that were typically going to be like on the east side, 58th and Lexington on the east side of Manhattan. I would rent gym space in a place where I was just renting all my clients from. So I would like skateboard there and take the train back, and I started running classes in Central Park. And
Let's go back to La Palestra real quick.
Okay.
Give me your top 5 celebrity that you loved coaching the most.
Oh man, like I'm really not supposed to say the people that were in there. Like there is the reason that they pay that kind of money is because of the discretion, right? So I'm really not supposed to name drop, but I can tell you.
But I'll do it.
I met a lot of my heroes. Actors, entertainers, and I'm not afraid to say the people that I have friendships with, like B.B. Winans, who's like a legendary R&B soul singer.
He's literally
guy. We still stay in touch. He loves to train. He stays in touch. We went to see his shows on Broadway and stuff.
He's just the nicest, most beautiful person.
Yeah,
you
awesome,
know?
awesome dude. We've done podcasts together with him, but it's a unique circumstance because you get to connect with some really cool people, and I never thought of it as like being opportunistic in any way. I was just stoked to meet them, and I was more concerned with doing a good job with them as a trainer than anything else, really. It was cool.
It's so obvious to me that you've never been opportunistic about this stuff, because I feel like unless I would be asking you those questions right now, no one would even know that like you used to train like tons of celebrity. Like literally sometimes we'll watch a movie.
Well,
and
I have a problem with that because people told me this before. Like I've heard it with like, oh, you need to market yourself as like the celebrity trainer and that you train these people and tell them your roster and your clientele. But I fundamentally disagree with that because like who I train doesn't really say much about the quality of the program. Like just look at the athletes and the results, whether you're a janitor or the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, like it shouldn't make a difference in terms of the service you provide and the actual product you're providing. And it's the same thing with like myself. Like, yes, I use myself to market my business a lot, right? So I'll show my body and my physique. I'm proud of it. I worked for it. But I think like you shouldn't purchase a program or buy into a system based on the way the trainer looks or whether you think they're cool. You should look at what are they actually doing with their athletes and what are they producing, in terms of depth and breadth? Like how many athletes are they affecting? How deep are the impressions they're putting on them? Like when you look at those before and afters, like are they dramatic? Because ultimately, like results are king. And so whether you're sitting there arguing semantics that you know more about training or you have a better body or you're a natural athlete, like I don't like it when people buy a program because they're like, I want to look like that guy. Because they could be genetically gifted. They could be doing all kinds of drugs or anabolics
they might be doing things that are very unhealthy.
They might not even be doing their program, right?
Yeah, we see that all the time.
And so it's so silly to use that. And I think for me, it really offends me to, sometimes people will say like, oh, well, it's very misleading, Dave, because you're on testosterone replacement therapy and people are expecting that they're going to look like you because they do your program. Like, that's ridiculous. Do you do CrossFit because you want to look like Greg Glassman? Like, that's the most ridiculous thing. You got to look at the athletes and the results to really be able to evaluate that stuff. And so I don't like the idea of like parading around who your clients are as a way of validating your training. It's got to be about the results.
I like that a lot, and I agree 100% with you.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I agree with that. I think that I don't like when. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, good job.
No sentiments.
Good job.
No additions or subtractions on that one.
No, that's it.
Okay, cool.
I think results are king, and our job is to help everyone. And there's no special treatment or unspecial treatment, because I do feel like we both just give every ounce of us to everyone the same way. It's like the standard.
Listen,
don't care who you are. We will give you the best of the best.
We offer a number of services, right? And some of our services are very, what you might call low ticket, right? Where you're like, oh, I'm paying $30 for a training subscription, or I'm paying $99 to do a 30-day shred and get some nutrition coaching. But then there's like price points where we have like concierge services that are, $1,250 a month or $3,000 for a 3-month package. Like, these are high ticket, and while we do give those people probably more time, the amount of care and attention, like when I see something in our Thunderbro box about somebody who can't access their subscription, like I will personally respond to them. Mm-hmm. You've seen me answer the phone, because I think my number is on some stuff when people need help or something on a few accounts, and they're like, I pick up the phone, and they're sometimes like shocked it's actually me.
Dave?
And I'm like, I read the program. Like, how can I? And sometimes I'll have like 15, 20-minute conversations with these people because I want to know them, because I'm just so honored that they have given me their trust and their hard work and allowed me to be a small part of their training journey. And I want to make sure that piece is a really impactful piece, and that we can deliver an experience to them that they can't get anywhere else. Because I know there are a lot of big programs out there, and I try to make myself more accessible probably than I should, because I really care about everyone's experience. So I don't know how many people that are, doing the Mayhem programming or talking to Rich Froning, or how many people that are doing the HWPO or talking to Matt Frazier, but like I am very accessible, and I want to be a part of that. Yeah. Like I'm not just like writing the program and saying see you later, but the whole company is really a representation of myself in a lot of ways, like my journey and what I want people to achieve. So I'm highly invested in them when it comes to anything that they're doing with us. Yeah,
that's awesome. Okay, so after you did all of that in New York, then you started to work on your own. Is that before or after you did, what was it, like fitness in the park with Dave?
Oh, I had some cool stuff happening.
Because you had a show.
This is all before CrossFit, by the way. But
I just want everyone to know all the stuff you did, because you have such an extensive experience in the fitness industry, which I think is quite mind-blowing.
Well, I think about it sometimes about like hypotheticals, like if I had never found CrossFit, like what would I be doing? And I think I would be doing the same thing, maybe in a slightly different arena, but I was on a trajectory where like
you would have grown something.
I was already
big,
building,
no matter
I was
what.
already building a big clientele. Like I already had clients. Some of them were already kind of talking to me about like, hey, let's open up a gym or a studio, and I want to bankroll you. The thing was like, I just didn't really like New York. I didn't want to stay in the city. But I had a good friend of mine named Eric Von Froelich, who's the founder of a national chain called Row House now. And Eric and I used to hustle in New York. We would be on our bikes. So I had like, those messenger bikes with like the little narrow handles so you can get between the cars, like a fixed gear bike. We would ride those things around the city to our clients, like no brakes, faster than the cars. It was so much faster than a subway or a cab. The only problem is if it was wintertime, if it was raining, it was terrible. But we were in those situations. So he and I used to like run around the city on our bikes to different, these really nice buildings would have like baller gyms in them. So sometimes we would go to somebody's apartment to train them, or we were also leasing training space from the same place. And in between our clients, we started to train together and we started to bro out together. And Eric was like, I was like, man, this is me like 15 years from now, right? Like this is who Eric is. So we connected, and he had so many clients that he started being like, hey, I got this client, I'm just gonna give him to you. And it was awesome. And then one summer he would go to the Hamptons to chase his clients to the Hamptons because they would all leave the city, and he would just go there and like train them in his backyard or something. And he had this group of people that he was training in his Group X class at like Equinox or something that he's like, hey, you want to go train them in the park? And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be awesome, because I was only doing one-on-ones. I'd never really done the group thing. And so I was like, I'll take him in the park, and we started doing, it was kind of like CrossFit-esque kind of stuff. I had just started learning about CrossFit. We had like kettlebells and sandbags, and I would take this like industrial cart. So it was this like heavy duty Red Ryder kind of cart that I would fill up with sandbags and kettlebells. And now at this point, I was making good money in the city. So I moved from the Upper West Side to Central Park West, like right by the park, in a Trump Place building on Riverside, like right by the river. Really.
So you were making good money. What did you do with that money?
Well, hold on. Let me get there.
Make sure you get to that story, because it's pretty funny.
I'm in this building. It's got like marble floors. It's super nice. And I'm like wheeling this industrial cart through the Trump Place building. And like I see the other people like rolling their eyes. I'm like, I'm going to get kicked out of this place. But
everyone in their nice suit, like very New York-ish.
I had to walk it uphill like 4 blocks to the park,
Oh, God,
and then I would meet
so
these
funny.
people. And we started with like a group of like, I think it was 8 people, and eventually this class grew to over 30. Now, just to throw some numbers at you.
And it was also a speakeasy class,
Yeah,
right?
it was a speakeasy, because you would never, it was this email list where we'd be like, hey, we're meeting Tuesday, by the fountain at 4 p.m. We're meeting here by the pull-up bar on the, in different parts of the park, so they couldn't track us down. Even at one point, I got so tired of carrying the kettlebells around, I bought a bunch of bike locks, and I started locking them under bushes in the park, so I didn't have to carry them there. Like, how fucking crazy is that? And it worked. It was great. But this class grew to over 30, and it was an all cash, pay for it per class kind of thing. So everyone would come. It would be $30 per class. These classes had 30 people in them. It was like, we were now like making cash. And originally it was just me, but then I recruited one of my friends to help me, because I'm like, I could really use someone to help me with this class.
30 for one is a lot.
And so one of my best friends in New York is Denise Thomas. And Denise is now, like, we started CrossFit together and went to our seminars together and started interning and working on staff.
Flow master.
Now she's a big flow master for years and years.
CrossFit.
And she stayed with CrossFit. I kind of, stepped away and started Thunderbro.
Amazing trainer too.
Yeah, awesome. And we love Denise. And so we were running this class for a summer. And every time we would come home from the class, I would have, a bunch of cash, and I would just like throw it in a drawer. I threw it in like my top sock drawer, and I'd throw it in there. And one day she's in the apartment with me, and she's like, what do you want me to do with this cash? And I'm like, just throw it in that drawer up there. So she goes in my room, she opens up my sock drawer, and like cash just spews out of it. And she's like a very organized person.
Yes.
Like, she's like Mary Poppins.
Yes.
She needs the bands organized with the right colors.
Yes.
And you need to make sure that you wipe everything down.
She's very
tidy.
She used to make video about gym
cleanliness.
organization.
Gym organization.
Like
Totally
that's
Denise.
her thing.
Yeah. Spotless. So she's like, she comes out and she's like, what the hell is wrong with you?
I can hear her go,
Dave, this is crazy. How much money do you have in here? And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, what are you, like a drug dealer? And I'm like, no, this is a part of the class, the park class, right? So we go and we are like, well, what do you want to do? And she's like, well, let's count it. So we counted the whole thing. It took us hours to count all this. At the end of it, I think we had almost like $50,000 in cash.
Just laying in a drawer, in a socks drawer.
And we took it and we put it in Ziploc bags in $1,000 per Ziploc bag, right? So we got these Ziploc bags, we just put them in there. And that's what I used to start my first gym, like that cash, okay? But like it was gnarly. And the city is such a great place. There's so much opportunity. There's so many different types of people. And there's all this kind of cool fitness offerings, everything from like Barry's Boot Camp under the Brooklyn Bridge to like Soul Cycle, and now all these little studios and boxing gyms and bodybuilding gyms and now powerlifting gyms and CrossFit gyms. It's an awesome place to have access to a ton of different fitness offerings. And in New York, there is a TV station called LXTV, and LXTV is like a subsidiary.
Wait, I think we'll save this story for next time.
Okay.
Okay, because we don't have a lot of time left.
Well, can I just finish? Because you asked me about like being on TV.
I know, but then you went so far on another.
Well, this is how
story.
This is how I got there, because we're running this class in the park.
Okay, let's just say how you got on the show, and then we'll end it there, and we'll keep going.
An NBC executive walks by, and actually, like, it was someone who knew me, and was like, "Hey, we're casting for this show. Like, you should try out. You should try out for it." So I went to a casting call and came back, and they ended up getting it. And it was on this station called LXTV, which is a subsidiary of NBC. LXTV now has its own channel on cable, but it would run in cabs. So every time you get into a cab, LXTV would be on.
So you were in the cabs.
And so I would host the fitness segments, like Fitness in the City, where we would start to explore these different fitness offerings in the city, like this kind of class, working out in the Brooklyn Bridge, working out in Central Park, getting ready for ski season, like all that stuff. And we would just do a different episode, and I got media trained, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And this was all before CrossFit, like, so when I started in CrossFit, it was like you're back at the bottom of the totem pole, and you got to kind of work your way up, because I think the title was like, the host was supposed to be like Hunky Trainer, the Hunky Trainer host on NBC's LXTV. And now, like, CrossFit is such a no-nonsense kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's like the opposite of CrossFit. You know what I mean? It's not like pretending to be fit. It's like, what's your deadlift, bro? That kind of
With
thing.
With your friend.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all those stories. I'm gonna try to dig if we can find a video.
I think I have
you.
So there in the video, one of the things they did, like, there are some segments which are great, but I think the best one is there was like the way you got the job was that the audience would vote on you. So they would highlight a trainer, like they would highlight like 3 trainers, be like, this is Luke from Brooklyn, this is Dave from the Upper West Side. And people would watch it, and they'd have to log on to like lxtv.com and vote for which one they wanted to host the segment.
I love it.
So I won the voting. I actually think one of the reasons I won was because at that time, there were not a lot of CrossFits in the Northeast. There was like CrossFit South Brooklyn, CrossFit NYC, and then like CrossFit Milford in Connecticut, and CrossFit New England. But there was not a lot of other affiliates in the city. This is like in 2008, 2009. Mm-hmm. So I think at that time, like, a lot of those affiliates knew me, and they saw that I was like trying to get this job. So I think I got a lot of votes from the CrossFit community, which helped. And it was fun. It was fun. Every chapter of my career in life, like, it has some really neat stuff that sometimes I even forget about. But it's been
we'll cover them through those little interviews. All right, thank you. Ask us your question. What else do you want to know about me or Dave? And we're going to keep sharing all of this with you. Thanks for listening, guys.
Boom. Thanks, Cam.
See, that was way